I'm Bob Croghan from the Organization of Staff Analysts, and I've come here to tell you about a recent decision we had to make. The Manhattan Bronx Surface Transit Operating Authority provided a list of 89 analysts who they said were either managerial or confidential or both, and therefore should not be allowed to vote in any election to be held. Well, we're a little bit impatient about getting an election held as soon as possible, but on the other hand, conceding any individuals to be either managerial or confidential was not something we were very enthusiastic about. However, we do have a history and a background in this. So we went to the trouble of listening to their arguments and so forth and so on, and their arguments were, for the most part, well, not very serious arguments. For example, we have a person who's a staff analyst trainee working in the fair area, who apparently sets policy. Not the governor, apparently he does. We also have a large number of folks who sign cards for us who work in the pensions department of MaBSTOA, and it turns out they also make policy, and that is equally hard to believe. And in fact, we don't believe it. Nonetheless, we did allow them to take some of the folks out of the election because we have a long history with this, and we know what's going to happen afterwards. What's going to happen afterwards, as soon as the election is held, if people vote for a union, we're going to be filing for and receiving into our membership, under their coverage, the very same people that the city is now, or the MaBSTOA is now claiming are managerial and or confidential. Why am I so sure? Because we've done this before. As far back as the 1970s and 80s, the Koch administration was claiming that all staff and associate staff analysts were either managerial or confidential. Nonsense. The Office of Collective Bargaining, which was the impartial body there, went through case after case and finally came up with the idea that 400 to 600 of the staff and associates at least were clearly neither managerial nor confidential. We got to the point where the Koch administration was so afraid we would win more that they offered us up to 400 to 600 people unionized in the analyst title series if we would agree to stop organizing. Well, we sat back and said, no, we want 650. And in spite of the fact they told us that there was no more than 400 or 600 at most, they caved in and gave us 650. But then they turned around and cheated because they didn't necessarily give us the 650 that we really wanted, which were those who had volunteered to belong. They gave us 301 who hadn't volunteered to belong, plus 349 who had signed cards. Okay, we had an election, and 3-1, we won the election. So it turns out the ones who hadn't signed cards still voted for the union because they knew it would be a better thing. Thereafter, the city played further games, and I'm going to just bring up one, Flora Jones. She was in the original 650, so she was unionized. And she worked downtown in Manhattan on the 10th floor of a building and was then transferred within the same agency, and even the same subsection of the agency, 2 flights lower, where she got a new assignment. And now we were told she couldn't be in the union because she was confidential. The only problem was, how could she possibly be confidential? In her new assignment, she was working for an Organization of Staff Analysts union officer, Sheila Gorski. How on earth could you be a confidential employee in a labor relations context if your immediate superior is a union officer? But for us to go off and get that stuff established legally would be long hearings in front of the Public Employment Relations Board and so forth and so on. So we decided we would simply accept it for a while because the Koch administration was coming to an end. And by the time it had ended, we had gone from 650 down to 450. The new administration came in, and a fellow named Eric Schmerz was the new labor relations director, and he said to me, do you know that everything's been done to your title series for the last 7 years is illegal? To which I responded, yeah, I know, but I'm really glad to hear you say it. He said, I don't know what to do. I said, I do. We have a list of 1,000 people who signed up with us as OSA members. There's organizational staff analysts, related titles. They're people in the waiting room to become unionized as fast as we can get the law to agree to it. Just look at them, and look at them honestly in terms of the New York State Tail Law, and you're going to find out that they're all going to be eligible to become union members. It took a whole year, and at the end of the year, he called me to congratulate me. The organizational staff analysts had just gone from 450 to 1,450 because every one of the 1,000 people was eligible. He said, that's great, but now I don't know what to do next. I said, don't worry about it. We've been organizing since then. We have 850 more have signed cards. He said, now you have way more than half the entire title series. I said, yeah. He said, okay, now we'll ask the agencies to tell us which ones they think are really managerial and really confidential. Well, we went through another 6 months of that, and some of those stories are pretty funny. I'll just pick out maybe one or two. The one, the Human Resources Administration. A gal named Gloria Demopoulos was their representative, and she brought in a list of 25 people, all of whom were either managerial or confidential. I sat there and said, all right, Gloria, we got this list here. Let's take that first name of the list. What little secrets does this particular person know that somehow the union can't be allowed to know? And instead of answering me, she said, Bob Croghan, you ruined my Thanksgiving. I said, what? You ruined my family day. When I went to my mother's house to eat Thanksgiving dinner, she kept yelling at me because my sister told her that you told my sister that you can protect her from layoff and I can't. I said, well, I did talk to your sister. And the truth is, you know, it's a new administration and you're provisional, and I think you're a very good manager and I hope to keep you, but she's also provisional, and you know how the game goes. Somebody else may have a friend or a relative they want the job for, and they could knock her off for no good reason. But once she's in the union, they have to give her due process. So they have to be fair with her. So I can make her safer than you can. At that point, the person who was running the hearing, a gal named Jane Roeder, worked for Labor Relations, said, let's break for lunch. So we broke for lunch. When we came back, I said, where's Gloria? I was told by Miss Roeder, actually, she conceded the whole 25 names, and she's not coming back to talk about this anymore. So we won those 25, because they weren't managerial and they weren't confidential, and we knew it. There was another case of a gal named Helen Tanges from the police department, and her position was civilians working in the Office of Management Analysis and Planning of the police department had access to such secret information that they had to be confidential employees. Well, you know, that was really nonsense. It was nonsense because my staff analyst was sitting alongside of New York City police lieutenants doing the same work. My associate staff analyst was sitting alongside of New York City police captains doing the same work, and they were all unionized. But for the sake of a compromise, I offered the fact that, okay, everybody who's already an OSA member has to have the right to stay in the union, but new people coming in, you don't have to have them in the union because it's so confidential. The city agreed to this, and of course the result was we got everybody who was in OMAP into the union, and then within another year, Helen Tanges had lost her job, and no one else remembered the deal, so everybody in OMAP is still unionized, and they should be. We're not worried about the ones we had to give up temporarily for the sake of getting a faster election for the rest of the folks. We're going to get them back in the minute after the election's over with if we won the election. We have never stopped fighting for everyone's rights, and we're not going to stop now. The reality here is we know this is a temporary measure simply to expedite getting an election. And then we make a promise to you. We will go back and we will win those people back into union coverage. We keep our promises. Thank you for listening.